Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Good morning. My name's Tom. I'm live here. We are, there's Charlie and Jess. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad you guys could be here. Maroney, welcome. I'm going to ask you guys to just sort of bear with me a minute as we get settled in. I am going to invite some folks up on stage. Come on up. Everybody's bouncing around on my feed here on Clubhouse. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today?
Great. It's a hard task to do a live in Clubhouse. I'm just saying that, Tom.
It is.
You get confused. It's so funny. I mean, I get confused, not you.
There's just a lot of things happening. There's like it's a little bit of a juggling act to get the room going, and it's definitely a little bit more challenging without Dominick here to actually. He usually handles the Clubhouse side of things, and I handle the live stream side of things. So him not being here definitely leads me to appreciate how what he does and what he brings to the table. So how's everybody doing today?
I'll help you if you mod me, Tom. I can bring people up for you and
Absolutely
all that stuff.
I appreciate that. There you go. I'll mod you.
If you want.
Yep, I'll make Brian a mod. There we go. Awesome. Jess, you want to be modded also? Help bring people up.
Yeah,
Awesome.
of course, Tom. If you need me, I got you.
I appreciate it. Cool. There we go. All right. Awesome. So good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. This is our weekly room, Clubhouse podcasting, publishing, and social media. I'm your host, Tom, usually here with my intrepid co-host, Dominick, who's out this week. So in advance, just want to say thank you to everybody helping out, pitching in, and picking up the slack that is obviously here without Dom. So Julie and Brian and Jess and everybody helping out. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you guys being here as always. And I do actually have something on my mind that I wanted to talk about, a topic that I wanted to sort of bring up to get the room going today. And that is, so I was just doing a ride this morning on my indoor trainer because my doctor has now approved me to ride on my indoor trainer. And I was doing a ride on my indoor trainer just a little while ago. And I was thinking about something that comes up in conversation quite a bit when I talk to other business owners and other entrepreneurs. And that is this idea of people pleasing, right? And trying to sort of make everybody happy all the time. And it's something that a lot of businesses struggle with, I think. And they sort of steer away from taking a stand on their values, espousing their values, letting people know where they stand on issues because they're afraid of upsetting people or alienating a potential customer. And I believe that that's a mistake. I believe that wholeheartedly that people want to do business with organizations, businesses. They want to listen to podcasts. They want to join Clubhouse rooms. They want to interact with people who share their values or similar values, right? Or inspire them in some way. And you don't do any of those things by sort of always taking the safe, inoffensive route, I believe. And the saying that popped into my head was that saying that is often used with sort of military undertones, but fortune favors the bold, right? Or fortune favors the brave. And I was thinking about that, and I think that's 100% true in business as it is in other aspects of life, that fortune favors the bold, that people who are brave enough to disrupt, people who are brave enough to take a stand for what they believe is right, that I think generally speaking, fortune favors those people. So I wanted to kind of start the conversation there, and then as usual, we'll follow it wherever it goes. We're always open here. This is an open forum. Always open to hear people's questions, share their, allow them to share their tips, give advice, all of that good stuff. But I just wanted to start the conversation there. And I'm just going to go down my list in order of who's with me up here. So let me just refresh the room real fast to make sure I've got everybody in order. So Julie, you're next on my list here on my club deck page. So what
Oh,
are your
yeah.
thoughts on that? Does fortune favor the bold?
Absolutely, the risk takers. And, it just speaks to, leaning into your fears. And are they really fears? People who don't participate, people who want to stand on the sidelines, that's fine. We need those people. We need those supporters in the world. But if you're shooting for the stars, if you are going for that gold, then you do have to do things that feel really uncomfortable. So I agree with you 1,000. Who could not agree with that, right? Maybe someone disagrees. I don't know.
What do you think of it, Julie, in particularly in terms of like a sort of business or professional context? What do you think about businesses or professionals, entrepreneurs taking a stand on their values, for example?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I think a lot of times people lose themselves in the crowd or what they think they should be doing, and they lose sight of their core mission of why they started doing the things that they're doing. And I think when you do deviate and get out of alignment with those values, you find yourself in places you shouldn't be. Or, Tom, thoughts?
Yeah, agreed. I
Oh my
think
God, I can hear that cackle like reverberating. My cackle.
oh no. Yeah, I mean, agreed. I think people get lost in that sort of people pleasing. And so the reason, the sort of thing that spurred this thought process for me, just to kind of chase that, is obviously there's a huge conversation going on right now with in the US with the leaked majority decision draft that came out of the Supreme Court, which indicates that the Supreme Court is poised to overturn Roe. And I was thinking about that, and I, it's one of those interesting things. Like, I have no problem. This is being live streamed all over the place. I'm wearing my logo. It's being live streamed on my business channels on Facebook, and it's on my LinkedIn. And I have no problem. I have no qualm sitting here right now and saying I 100% oppose that. I absolutely believe that women's rights are human rights, and women have the right to choose, and that we should not impose other people should not have the ability to impose their religious or any other beliefs on other people, right? You have the freedom to practice religion in this country. You don't have the freedom to impose your beliefs on other people. And so I 100% oppose that stance and that position. But I think a lot of people would be reticent to say something like that in a public forum wearing their branded material, right? Like, while something is live streaming on their business channel. And that's curious to me because honestly, it's not a super controversial position to take, right? More than 60% of the country supports Roe, right? And doesn't believe it should be overturned. And, up to like 70+% of the electorate, like on the political side of things, also believe that Roe should not be overturned. So it's actually not a controversial stance at all to take.
I
But I
was going
think
to
a lot of
say the opposite would be more controversial, I think, in this room and forum.
Right. And but what I think is interesting is that I think a lot of businesses, in particular, people in their professional lives would say, stay silent. Right. And there's this idea that there's a professional you and a personal you, which is weird because, like, at the end of the day, there's just one you, right? Like, I'm me, whether I'm here on Clubhouse or I'm hanging out, having a beer, or I'm, at a networking event like I was last night. I'm just me. It's the only person I know how to be, and I'm not going to try to be somebody else. So I just think it's curious that people are sort of. I think what the inclination for most people would be to just stay silent in their professional lives, and I think that's a mistake. I think you're better put to just be you. So let's go to Jess next. Jess next. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Jess. What do you think about that idea? Is it better to stay silent, or is it better to share your values and beliefs and stand for them?
For me personally, we take a stance as a business for social injustice and awareness. So to me, taking a stance in this topic, it means nothing. It's the same for me. Like, I don't waver. Who I am as a person and my morals is who I am in business. Um, and if it doesn't resonate with, others, I don't impose that on others. But to me, I have to stay true to my values and my morals, um, because I believe that this is my own personal perspective, my own personal opinion, is as long as you don't impose your beliefs on someone, or you have to do this or you have to. I don't see anything wrong with that. So as a business, each season for our podcast, we dedicate it in the life and memory of someone who lost their life to social injustice. But we do it, and it's video audio, and it's inclusive, not exclusive, meaning you see all walks of life, all colors, all races from everywhere, from the States, overseas. So that to me is just a demonstration that my business stands for just the right. Why take the right away from a woman? I wouldn't take it away from a man. That's just my personal belief.
100% agree. 100% agree. And it's always good to hear when people are for their willing to take a stand for their personal beliefs in their professional life as well. I think we're better off, uh, you know, generally speaking, when people are willing to do that. So I see Brian is on the phone. So next up in my queue is our friend Professor Jemmy. So or producer Jemmy, Professor Jemmy, producer
I'll
Jemmy. I
take
don't know.
it.
Yeah, okay. You want to be a professor today? We'll go ahead and give you the honorific. But producer Jemmy. So I don't know if you heard how much of the conversation you heard, but we were talking about this idea. This phrase popped into my head this morning about fortune favors the bold or fortune favors the brave, and about taking a stand on beliefs on social issues in your business rather than staying silent, and sort of where people fall on that. My personal opinion is that you're always better off to just be you, right? And to be authentic to who you are, and to take a stand for your personal beliefs and the things that you think are right, whether that be in your personal life or your professional life. So curious to hear your thoughts on how you incorporate that into your work with podcasters.
This is such a great and timely topic for a lot of reasons. So for me, I don't see. I understand why people discuss this as an issue, as a topic, as a talking point, because it really should be. But for me, it's kind of like I am who I am, and I live how I live, and we're on this planet one time. And I want to make sure that at the end of my run, I can look back and believe in my integrity and hold strong to my beliefs and think that I contributed and put good into the world. And so I feel like I need to express that in all things. And if I'm walking that walk, excuse me, if I'm talking that talk, I also need to walk that walk. And if it means that clients end up self filtering because something I say is offensive, in my opinion, that's okay, because it means that I'm probably gonna enjoy myself a little bit better not with you anymore if you believe something that's really, really radically different from a moral or ethical standpoint than I do. I also feel like if I express myself, it gives me the opportunity, it gives people the opportunity who might believe differently or think that they wouldn't wanna work with someone who believes like I do. I feel exactly the same way you do, Tom. Um, then that's okay too. And we're all allowed to live our own lives and believe what we want to believe. And it shouldn't be about whether or not it's going to impact my bottom line. I'm not worried so much about my financial ledger as much as I'm worried about my moral ledger. And so when I think about something like this, in this topic, especially, well, actually, I'm going to rewind it a little bit. When when George Floyd was murdered, I was shook. I mean, the whole country was shook, but obviously I'm black, so I was extra shook. And I took my emotions to the microphone completely raw and completely unfiltered. And I put out an episode, and it to this day is something that people say really resonated with them, and they were so grateful that I was that raw. And I feel like that's what we're supposed to do. When we have a platform, we're supposed to move people. We're supposed to inspire people, right? That's what we're supposed to do. And if we're wanting the mantle of a leadership role, then that comes through with your morals and beliefs as well. And they may be in conflict with other people. That's what America's about. But you still should lead from where you believe. Now, I say that, and the reason I say this is super timely, not just because of what's going on with Roe v. Wade, but I'm not sure if you guys saw, but I'm not going to name names or anything like that. People can look it up. But there was a member of an established podcast community, an academy, podcast academy, that was removed from his leadership position because of his views that he expressed on this issue. And it wasn't like it was just a hammer went down from one single person's decision. It was a community effort. People shared their opinions, and it was he took a chance. And he believes very much opposite what I do in a lot of ways, but he took a chance. And in one way, I applaud him for speaking up and saying what he believes, because it is what he wants to. He look, that's what he wants to live. That's what he wants to live. That's how he wants to believe. That's what he wants to believe. Move forward with it. And that's being honest. And now I know. Now people know, and they can make their choice whether to work with him or not. Same thing with me. So I just think in all things, I don't look at it so much as business versus personal. For me, it's the same. I'm one human in one world and one path through this life. So I'm going to live it the same way in all spaces. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Tom. I'm complete.
It does, Jimmy. Thank you very much. And I love, it's funny. One of the things that you said was something that I actually wanted to bring up at some point, was that whole idea of sort of self-selection, right, by clients and customers. And so what you end up with when you take a stand on values is you will inevitably end up with some clients or customers who say, yeah, I'm not interested in working with you because I don't believe what you believe, right? But at the end of the day, those people are probably, I would say, highly likely to be the clients that you would have ended up wanting to fire anyway, right? And then you have other clients and customers who will turn around and say, either I agree with you, or I applaud your courage, or I applaud the fact that you have a value stance and you're willing to stand up for what you believe in, right? Regardless of whether or not they agree with you. And they'll continue to work with you, or they'll choose to work with you because of that, right? And those are the kind of clients that you want to have. Those are the people you want to have in your community. So I love that you brought that up, because that was something that that I was going to hit on anyway. And yeah, just to echo what you said, I mean, I don't know if I said it before you came in the room this morning, but I said too, I only know how to be me, right? I am me. I only know how to be me. And so I'm me, whether I'm here, whether I'm at a networking event like I was last night, whether I'm hanging out with friends having a beer. I'm the same person. You get me no matter where you find me. And I think it's important that people stop trying to be one person at home, or one person in their personal life, and one person at work, or a different person in their professional life. I think it's damaging. It's more damaging than it is good. That's my personal belief. I'm going to jump back up to Brian. I see Brian's off the phone. Brian, super curious to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think people should take a stand?
I do, but I don't believe it's as simple as as a lot of us out here are talking about. I think it's simple when it just affects you, but the bottom line is our opinions will affect our businesses and will affect. We saw it with Disney, right? I mean, some corporate entity came out in Disney and made a statement, and it is cost them billions of dollars. Now, that might have been her truth and her feelings and her honesty, but there are certain things that don't belong aired. Let's talk about teachers. As a teacher, the students should never know your political view. That's not what you're there to do. You're there to teach children or young adults. But so it's interesting. I feel that political correctness has has buried a lot of us into a closet. I'm a Catholic and a Christian, and I believe that years ago I got fed up with feeling like you had to almost hide that because there was this attack on Catholics and Christians out there, and that's not me. I don't hide things. I am who I am. I agree with you. I agree with Jimmy. I agree with Julie with a lot of things. Um, Roe versus Wade. I'm going to take the other stance. I don't believe the decision is a religious decision. I believe it's a decision over the life of a baby. And I think that killing a infant is immoral and illegal. And if people can't regulate or figure out how to not kill a child, um, then somebody needs to step in because laws are the only thing that does protect us from doing the things we want to do. But that's just my opinion on that. I run a nonprofit, and I have been told, watch your views, watch your views. You don't want to affect anybody, and it's difficult not to be you as a person. And I at first I did watch my views, and then I kind of believe what you do, that ultimately, if you try to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one. And I think that makes our jobs more difficult, more unsatisfying when you're trying to please others and not be you. So yeah, tough. It's tough, and I'll leave it with this. What I see so missing out there is the ability to agree to disagree. Like Tom, I believe differently about Roe versus Wade than you do, but I'm not going to stop following you, and I still respect the things you do. I mean, I don't know why people can't, still do those things. You have a difference of opinion. Um, that doesn't change, in my opinion. I think you're a very moral gentleman that has so much to offer so many people. Just because we differ on Roe versus Wade doesn't take any of that away. That you're talented, that you're giving, that you're kind, that the things you've accomplished. How does somebody wipe all that off because we differ in an opinion about something like that? I just don't live my life that way. I don't. I can agree to disagree and have a beer with you, and I think that's so missing from this world today. I'm complete.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate that. Thank you for your words there and what you said about me particularly. I'm flattered, and I appreciate that, and the feeling very much is mutual. Um, the thing, and I don't necessarily want to go down the road of having a debate on this. I just sort of wanted to create an opportunity. So just so everybody knows, like, that's not my intention. I don't want to create a debate here. My goal is to really talk about the sort of broader subject as in a sort of podcasting, publishing, social media presence kind of way. Is it a good idea as a business or as a professional, as an entrepreneur, to stand on your values in a public way? Right? Is it and I think, Brian, you hit it on the head with, if you go around trying to please everybody, all you end up with is pleasing no one. Right. So I think it's important to let people know who you are, right, and what you believe, even if they disagree, right? Because at the end of the day, you will never find a place, you will never find another human being on this earth, right, that agrees with you on everything. It's just not the way the world works, right? Like, I know that in my personal life. Becky and I have been together almost 10 years, and we do not agree 100% on every single thing in the world. We just don't, but that's okay, right? We work through disagreements, and we respect each other, and that's how we move forward. But Jemmy, I saw you flashing. Did you want to add something there?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I see Daniel took the words right out of my mouth. and in the chat there, and it's in, man, he really nailed it. And I kind of want to share something that what I try to do, and because I talked about kind of filtering in terms of clients and vice versa, and you highlighted that, but I want to make something a little more clear in terms of how I personally move. Um, I also agree in some ways with what you were just saying there, Brian, because I don't it's not black and white for me. There's certain subject matters where it is very black and white for me. And like, I'm not gonna get into that, but there's a short list. But for the most part, when I learn that somebody disagrees with me, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna stand on my high horse and never work with them. The way that I view it is, unless it's on that short list, I see it as an opportunity for us to have conversations where we both can possibly grow. And I've seen this happen time and time again. In fact, one of my very best friends in the whole wide world is somebody who, on paper, we couldn't be more opposite. Glenn the Geek. And I'm a somewhat short African American woman in my early 40s. He is a very tall white cowboy in his early 60s. And we're very, very different on paper. And our backgrounds and their journeys through lives are very different. So our beliefs and where we've landed on things because of the information we've been exposed to has sometimes differed. But we've been the same on time and time again is our heart and our intentions and our morals and our ethics. And we've realized that underneath the surface of it all. And it's led to some really incredible conversations. He's been my co-host on Finding Florida. So we were in the car traveling together a lot every month, and we were stuck in that position. We had to talk, and we talked about everything. And those conversations were really, really important. And if I had just heard, let's say, one snapshot of something out of his mouth, then maybe I would have taken it the wrong way and had a whole laundry list of opinions about him. But I know him, and I know where his intentions are. So I just want people to know that I think it is very important to voice your opinion, but also still be open to understanding why someone believes what they believes, less than what it is exactly that they believe. I'm complete.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate that thought. Appreciate you chiming in there and sharing that. Yeah, and 100% agree. I think just as I believe it's important to share your beliefs, to take a stand for your values, and to let people know what you believe in, what you stand for, what your sort of morals and beliefs are. I think it's also important to respect that other people may have differing beliefs, right? And we can accept that and move forward. And often people will, even if somebody agrees with you on a bunch of stuff, they're going to disagree with you on something, right? Like that's just the way the world works. And you have to be willing to accept that not everyone is going to see things the way you see them, because you're the only one that sees the world through your eyes, right? You're the only one that is the accumulation of your lived experience, and you're the only person that sees the world exactly the way you see it. So you have to respect that other people have their own unique interpretation of the world and their own unique understanding of it, and that will move us to believe slightly different things. But yeah. So moving along here. Our friend Charlie is in the room. He was one of the first people that's in here. Sorry, it's taken a couple of minutes to get to you, Charlie. Appreciate you being here as always. Where do you? I think you've taken a stand on helping animals, right, and animal abuse in some of your work. So, talk about your experience with taking a stand.
Thanks, Tom, for having the room today without our friend Dominick. One thing I do remember being told this many years ago, I'm a people pleaser. And I was told by a business mentor, Charlie, one sure way to fail is to please everyone. So, two things have come up huge in my life now. One is, before the animals, Tom, is that I worked for the Department of Corrections, specifically death row. Spent many years on death row. And I saw the injustice of the way sentences were handed out. And that bothered me. And I saw that the victims' families didn't feel better after we executed these inmates. And I was quiet about this for all these years. And I'm very proud that I took a stand, and now I'm 3 million views on a YouTube video, right up there with Jordan Peterson, and me talking about the mechanics of the death penalty and talking about what it does to our staff and how we can't wash away what we see. And I'm going to segue this into a very unpopular opinion, probably what happened yesterday. I heard the night before, we all heard about Casey White and the prison official that took him out. And Rick Singleton made a statement that rocked me. He says he will be now in a cell 24 hours a day with shackles and leg irons, handcuffs and shackles. We don't do that in America. In America, we don't have an eye for an eye justice system. And my significant other was blown away. She said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to call the sheriff's department." And let me tell you, they knew I was right. I said, the only time we put somebody in a 5-point restraint is under medical supervision. If they're going to hurt somebody, we don't make comments like that. In America, we have justice with mercy, because if we don't, that's cruelty. So I took a stand there, Tom. I took a stand there, and that's probably not a popular stand, but I know the other side of prison. And I know that I'm not a political guy. I'm a human being, and I can separate personality from liking or disliking a person. I see the bigger picture. Last part of this. So a number of years ago, me and my wife decided to get a dog. And we lived in an upscale neighborhood. And I wanted to be a people pleaser. When I was a young kid, before there was breed restrictions and dog racism, I had a pit bull growing up, but I denied that I had a dog like that in my mind. So I got a little white dog, and we went to the dog park. The little white dog was a Jack Russell. He wound up biting a pit bull, and I wound up having to pay medical bills. The bottom line is this: I hid that part of me, and I didn't stand up for that. And here I am in an upscale neighborhood, and I wind up rescuing a world famous dog. For those that don't know, Star the dog, that's in Wikipedia. And I got judges, prosecutors, I got everybody you could imagine as professors, as neighbors. And I start rescuing these pit bulls because I took a stand for the dogs. My neighbors supported me. And Tom, it goes back to what you said early on. I would have never, if I gyrated and went all over the place and didn't take a stand, nobody would ever know how I really feel. So I denied this stuff all these years. I'd hear terrible things about pit bulls. I'm a statistics guy. I read the book, The Art of Thinking Clearly. I know that there's 3 million pit bulls in America. Yes, they do bite. They're powerful dogs. But I also know the media tried to demonize my family's boyhood dog that was a Doberman Pinscher. But I'm not going to get into all that right here. I took a stand. I stuck up for the pit bulls. And I realized it made me more of what I want to be, whole. I don't get into any arguments with anybody over politics because I have never been all of one thing. I'm a human being. I fluctuate. I grow. I mature. I get immature. I don't know what I like, but I know this. I know I love my liberal neighbors. I love my conservative neighbors. I love my independent neighbors because I am a people person. So finally, I am starting to get some courage, and I did yesterday, by sticking up for this convicted felon who is not a good person, but he is not to be treated like that. That's not who we are. And we don't set a measure by using capricious, retaliatory behavior towards other people. Now, I said the reality here of what's happened is you guys got egg on your face, and you have a master central control that you guys didn't say a word about an inmate following a staff member into a car. We always have to be close to an inmate when they have shackles and handcuffs, because if they trip and fall, they can hit their head. So the protocol was wrong right from the get-go. But they look to transfer that, and they're going to shackle and handcuff this guy in a cell. It's not going to happen. He's been moved to the Alabama Department of Corrections. They did give me that information. And I was a little bit long-winded here today, but I'm coming out of my shell. I'm becoming whole. And I'm starting to stand up for the things that I believe in. Although you still can't get me into a political debate on Facebook. I don't argue with strangers over politics, and I don't want to get involved in that. That completes me.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for sharing that. And I appreciate, when you were talking about making that phone call, right, and standing up for the treatment of that convicted felon who, as you said, is not a good person, right? I think what it made me think of is that this notion that a society is judged on how it treats its most vulnerable, right? And who is really more vulnerable to abuse, right, or to mistreatment than a prisoner, right? And I applaud you 100% for standing up for for what you believed in there, even though it's counter to what a lot of people would say. A lot of people would say, screw that guy, let him rot. They could do whatever they want to him. But at the end of the day, there's I'm not a religious person myself, but there for the grace of God go I, right? Like I would never find myself in that position because I wouldn't do what he's been convicted of doing. But we all find ourselves in positions of vulnerability at certain points in our lives, and there are times when we count on the kindness of others to see us through. And if we can't convey that same kindness even to people that we disagree with or people who have done bad things, then what does that say about us? So I appreciate that, Charlie. I think that was a brave and good thing that you did. So thank you for sharing that very much. Layla, I've seen you flashing your mic a bunch, and I noticed that you've commented in the chat a few times. I'm sure you have some thoughts on the subject, so please share. The floor is yours. There you are. Go ahead, Layla. Floor is yours. You're on mute.
Sorry, right at that moment, and I don't know if you guys can hear me. I started getting a poor connection signal. So if anyone can flash the mic, if they can hear me.
Sound good to me. You sound good to me.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks. Of course, it's the timing of that. Thanks, Tom. It's been a while since you and I have chatted on our video chat, and I saw.
Oh, there it went. I think we spoke too soon. You just dropped out.
Stances, like where do people stand throughout the room? But if I want to kind of do what you were suggesting, Tom, on a broader level, the difference between what you see in a business versus a podcast or a social media, um, I was thinking of it as the word engagement, and it's very different. Engagement in a business is about getting your employees to share the same vision, go in the same direction, have passion for what you're doing. But engagement defined in social media is very different. It's it can be controversial. It's not necessarily good or bad. Good publicity, bad publicity, they're both good, right? So this engagement and social media is so different than what businesses try to do with their employees. But the reason why I propose it that way is to get to this. But do we care what our business that we work for says? And I think people do. More and more it's coming up. But let me throw out there the work I do, I remove risk. My consulting business is what could kill your business, and I show up to help. Can you kill somebody? Can you make mistakes? Can you hurt the environment? And I work for oil and gas. I could work in a bank, in pharmaceuticals, a gun manufacturer. I could work in Africa. I've worked in the Middle East where you have to cover your hair. Women can't drive. I've seen people get their hand chopped off, not seen it because they stole $200. I've worked places that I don't agree with any of the culture or values, but I also have tolerance and respect. And I think to push it on to people to say, you're not being true to yourself because you work in places and with people that don't have the same values as you. So you're a enabler. I think that's where I would like to draw the line. If you work at Philip Morris, but you fundamentally think cigarettes are bad, are you immoral? Have you gone against your values? Should you quit? And some people will say yes. But others will say, but it's a good job and it pays the bills and you can do something that's, meaningful for you, meaning you're learning skills. So I don't know where you draw the line and say you're not being true to yourself, so you're a fake or a phony. Of course, you get into the podcasting world, and you know what? That turns into a business too. So we've all heard Howard Stern say he didn't really believe all the crazy stuff he said. It was for shock value. So now you're wondering, well, who is he? Is he real or not? Did he do a disservice, or was he doing a service? So anyway, I just throw out there that the word engagement has different interpretations inside a business. Engaging your employees to do good work for the company, very different than what we're calling engagement with your listeners and followers, because that could be controversial and still acceptable. Whereas in a business, they don't really want that. They don't want controversy to get engagement in a business. They need everybody aligned to deliver what that product or service is. So I throw that out there and see if there's any reactions, or and hopefully my connection stayed fairly true. But I close with that.
Yeah, thank you, Layla. Yeah, we lost you there for a couple of seconds at the beginning, but definitely got the gist. And I'll share my thoughts on this. So I think when you're on a platform or have a platform, for example, right, that I think it's important that either as an individual or if that platform is part of your business or you use it for business purposes, I do believe, especially from an entrepreneurial perspective, right, that you should go ahead and share your values and share where you stand and let people know who you are and be authentic to what you believe. From an employment perspective, I think again I think it's a personal decision, and I wouldn't presuppose to tell somebody who works for a bigger organization that they don't 100% agree with on things. I wouldn't presuppose to tell them that I would never say that makes you immoral, right? Because I don't think any place I've ever worked, I've been freelance most of my career and now I'm an entrepreneur, but I have been employed by large corporations. I worked for the BBC for a number of years. I guarantee I didn't agree with every single thing the BBC had ever said or done, right? That's just the nature of the beast, right? And I'm okay with that, and I think people should be okay with that, right? It's okay. It's again goes to that respect idea, right? That it's okay to disagree, that it's okay to have different beliefs as different individuals, different people, and between you and your employer, between you and the business that you work for. I think that's 100% okay. But yeah, I'll leave it open. Flash your mic if you want to share any thoughts on that subject. So I got Wade. Wade's flashing his mic. Wade, what are your thoughts on that subject?
Well, some of the things that I picked up on is intention. So as we were talking about, somebody was talking about the Roe versus Wade. The intention is what are their intentions? The other thing I thought about was previous speaker had mentioned Howard Stern, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was entirely about entertainment. So I don't expect the same thing from a podcast I might be listening that is solely revolves around entertainment or as a comedian as I would from, let's say, a podcast that's about legal issues or political issues or medicine. I do think there are different genres and categories and different levels of integrity. But overall, I do believe that everyone should live out their life as best they can and be authentic. Because really, at the end of the day, most people are going to figure it out anyways. So it's a really great conversation, but it's challenging. And for myself as a business person, I do safeguard some things, but others I wouldn't. Somebody had said there's a very short list, and I have that short list that if we can't agree on these things, and these are ethics, very ethical, then we just can't do business. If somebody isn't honest, I really don't want to do business with that person. So that's all I have. Great conversation. I'm complete. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Wade. Appreciate your thoughts there. Yeah, I think life is a balancing act, right? And we all have different things in our lives tipping the scales in different directions, right? As we try to sort of maintain balance and find our way through this world. So, like I said, I think it's a personal decision if somebody, differs on their moral beliefs from their employer, whether or not they decide to leave their employ, is a personal decision. It depends on whether or not they're able to, right? Sometimes, they're in a position financially, emotionally, whatever, where they can take that leap and move on from working with that company. But in other situations, they're not going to be able to do that. And that's okay, right? That it's okay to do what's best for you in your circumstances in your life, right? But yeah, it's all a balancing act, and it's just a matter of each of us finding what works best for us. Harry, have you seen you flashing a bunch of times as different people have been talking? Tell me what you think about taking a stand in business. Coming from your sales background as you do.
All right. So first of all, can I give everybody a hug?
Absolutely, I received that.
I just yeah. So my mind is going a million different directions over this topic. I love the topic, and I'm going to just tell you quickly where I came from. Years and years ago, I used to be very, very far left. I was very opinionated. As a missionary, completely, the world's going to end, clean up the environment, Ronald Reagan's a disaster, nuclear war. That's where I was at one point in my life. I got older. I ended up spending a couple of years in the Dominican Republic. And when I heard what Layla said, I mean, my eyes opened up so much seeing a completely different culture live. I spent time in St. Petersburg, Russia, just after communism collapsed. I chipped away at the Berlin Wall. I saw what people who loved freedom, what it meant for their life. So I wrote this book, Selling with Dignity, and it goes back to treating everybody with dignity. So yeah, we have different views. Doesn't mean those views stay with us forever. We grow up. We have different things happen in our lives that impact our views. What Charlie said was incredible, right? I used to think, well, man, if someone killed somebody, they deserve to die. And then when you hear Charlie tell his story, it's like, yeah, that's horrible, right? So what about the people that have to do the executing? What about the people that have to live with that, right? Views change. So I think we have to be cautious, right? I've read this great book. You guys might have heard of it, The Four Agreements. And in it, really early on, it talks about everything we've been taught is a lie. And just putting that in perspective, we've all been taught what our parents taught us, what our schools taught us, what their parents taught them. I mean, my mother was a victim of abuse. She handed down crap to me, but I don't blame her for it. She was a victim by her own family, right? So this could go on for generations. People who are racist, well, guess what? They don't just come out of the womb racist. They come out of the womb with parents that help them to become racist. So there's a lot of head trash that we all deal with. I just look at the world very neutral and say, I'm still learning. My friends around me are still learning. Everyone in this room is still learning. I am going to listen and understand where people are coming from. I'll give them the love. I'll give them the dignity. Doesn't mean I need to agree, but I'm not going to make a political stance on everything because I think the world is too effed up with being divisive. And I'll give everyone a hug. I don't care your political views. I don't care about your views on abortion or not. You're stuck on the side of the road. I'm going to help you, right? That's where I am. So I am a little emotional, but I love the chat. So I'll hand over the mic.
Thanks, Harry. Really, really appreciate that. And I think I speak for myself and a few other people in the room that were flashing when you said you want to give everybody a hug. I received that. I appreciate that, my friend. And thank you for being here. And thank you for treating people with dignity. I think that's incredibly important. And yeah, I love what you said. It very much resonated with me talking about, learning through life. I've always said and always believed that life is a learning experience, right? That you never stop learning, you never stop growing, you never stop improving, you never stop changing. It is important to embrace that and to continue to learn and evolve and improve on a day-to-day basis as you move through life. So something that I try to do all the time, and I appreciate you highlighting that point, Harry. Thanks for being here. Moving along, I'm going to try to keep things moving. I'm channeling Dominick, even though he's not here today. And going to try to keep it moving. And I am definitely not going to pronounce this next person's name correctly. Yeah, I don't know. Melio Catalan. Is that right? Am I even close? Am I remotely close? The floor is yours, my friend.
You were super close, Tom, Meljo, but you can call me Mel. That's for sure.
Oh, it's
Awesome. Well,
exactly how
welcome,
it's
Mel.
spelled. That's what threw you off. It's exactly how it's spelled.
Yeah. Well, Tom, Julia, thank you for having me on stage. This is my first time on this little room here on Clubhouse. My head is spinning for all these different viewpoints about your topic tonight. But let me just get straight on and talk about myself. My name is Mel. I am good evening. I'm here in Tokyo right now. I am the podcast host of Made in Japan podcast, and I am Filipino American, but I've been living in Tokyo for almost 16 years now. And my podcast is basically a comedy talk show, or mostly a talk show. There's a lot of podcasts in Japan that are mostly like English learning or business based podcasts, but my podcast was mostly on interviewing and talking to the people, foreigners or Japanese or local people who live in Japan, and from all walks of life, trying to explain what they're doing in Japan, and then trying to get like that quote unquote umami vibe of what's really happening in Japan. So that's my vibe in Japan with my podcast. And then I'm listening to you guys right now talking about growth, and there's just a lot of vibes about like you're putting the host's stances and opinion on what they want. And I'm coming from a different place because I haven't been living in the States for a long time. But as an outsider point of view, I guess an alien point of view, looking back into what's happening in the United States, it's a very interesting vibe. And people are, I hear the words divisive. I hear the words trying to be open-minded about what's happening politically and socially in Japan, or in the States. But for me, it's very, very fascinating what podcasting is in the States compared to, well, let's say the rest of the world. And I find it very fascinating that here in Japan, podcasting is kind of like not really popular, but in the rest of the world, everyone has like uses podcasting as like their platform to post their views. And here I am trying to share many people voices who live in Japan, trying to show what they're trying to do to succeed in Japan. And you're talking about like, how can you let's say not put your opinions into each episode with your guests. I do that. I that's the goal of my podcast. I try not to be putting my own views and my own stances, whether politically or religiously or social economically in my podcast. No, that's not the case. I just kind of want to feel the vibe of like what people are all about. And I like to say that my podcast is more of like an umami vibe, like trying to have that mix of like what's happening in Japan and in most of Asia. So it's great to be going to these type of chat rooms and hearing what's happening in the United States and listening to these previous speakers on. I really get this vibe. There's a sense of this urgency of trying to balance out like your points of views and trying to put out your podcast. And it's very fascinating to me. And I just think that I find that podcasting in itself is going to like continue on forever, not forever in my point of view, but like podcasting is such a valuable platform, out of all the social media platforms, because I think people really want that message of hearing these voices. Then and Clubhouse here is doing the same thing, is hearing these voices of people who are trying to balance this situation of stance and putting on the content that they want on their podcast. So this is a very fascinating Clubhouse chat room. So I'm just here. I'm all about this vibe. I'm here to listen to what's happening, and I just want to say that there was a speaker before, Layla, that talked about growth. And yes, there's a very big difference about engagement between podcasting and social media growth. So I wanted to echo that opinion that Layla put on about that. So I am Mel, and I'm done with this mic.
Thanks for being here, Mel, all the way from Tokyo. I've been to Japan a couple of times myself. It's a fascinating place. I've been to both Okinawa and mainland Japan and Tokyo. Yeah, it's a fascinating place and fascinating culture. And thank you so much for being here from virtually the other side of the world. Really appreciate it, and appreciate your thoughts and your feedback on the space. I'm going to jump back up because he is a mod here and in the room today, and always glad to see him here. He's a friend. He's the one that coined Julie's nickname as the Pied Piper of Clubhouse. So Jay, welcome to the stage. The floor is yours, my friend. What are your thoughts on taking a stand on what you believe in as a business?
What's up, Tommy? How you doing, man? How you healing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm hanging in. Thank you for being here, and thanks for asking.
Oh man, thank you for having me. Taking a stand. Well, you already know how I feel about that. I believe in if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything, right? So I'm just like looking around, looking at all these powerful people in this room. I got my partner in Crime Stopping on right next to you, Julie Logan. I don't know if she's told you that we started a club on here, Tom. How to spot the con men and con women in the clubhouse. And to date, we've recovered $40,000 in about 3 weeks. So how about that for taking a stand? Uh,
Uh,
so yeah, and we're still going strong. So we take a stand on helping people on this app. And I mean, look, for me, it's well, we all have our beliefs, right? Like I believe in what I believe in, and I'm at an age in life, at a stage in life, I want to learn. When I was in my 20s, I thought I knew it all. I didn't know shit, man. But now that I'm older, I just want to learn. You come on these apps, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can listen twice as much as you talk. So I come into spaces like this. I don't know anything about podcasting, but I know Julie does, and she's willing to teach me. And then you got people like Prof T, who's just an amazing person. You got Dan Roth, great guy. Then I get into space with somebody like Charlie, who shares his story. And then you got Jess Dalby, who's just like, she shakes the ground, and Brian. But, I always stand my ground. I speak my truth. Just because my truth's nobody else's truth doesn't mean I don't believe it. I'm about community building. That's why I started that club, because I got tired of the good people on this app getting taken advantage of. This app's a social media app, but it's also about, you know, Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my sister's keeper? Last week I was able to help a young lady on this app who was so despondent over losing $5,000 to a con man. And Tommy, you know my story. I'm an ex-con, and I don't say that out of pride. I say that because everybody in this room is a civilian, and I don't see things or hear things like everybody else does. I hear and see things differently. So when she told me her story, I was able to get her $5,000 back in less than an hour. And what people don't know is that $5,000 was going towards the purchase of her first house. And she thought she was doing something right by taking that $5,000 because this guy was. She thought she was going to double her money and she was going to surprise her boyfriend by look what I did. I doubled her money so we could get that house faster. But what she was doing was she was getting conned out of her money. So I have to tell you, Tom, in my entire life, I haven't had many really good moments. But when she told me that guy sent back her money in less than an hour, that's probably one of the top 5 days of my life. So if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything. I'm going to park there.
Thanks for sharing that, Jay. I think that's something I know I'm making a note of that right now. That phrase, if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything. I'm making a note of that. I would be shocked if other people here had not made a note of it or gotten out a pen to write that down when you said that, just to remind themselves that, it's important. It's important to stand up for what's right, and what's good. And I applaud you and Julie for doing that with your new club. And definitely it's on my must see list. So I'm definitely planning on stopping by. Thanks for being here as always. Much appreciated, my friend, all the way from Brooklyn, a fellow New Yorker here in the room. And Charlie, I think you're a New York guy too, right? So appreciate you guys being here. Up next, somebody who has I am biased because she has amazing things to say about me and has a higher opinion of me than I do. I think based on the post she just wrote using me as an example on LinkedIn. But Tiffany, the floor is yours. Let me know what you think about taking a stand personally, professionally, for what you believe in.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. You're so funny. You don't give yourself enough credit. This is Tiffany. I am from California. My background is as a marketing director, mainly for other companies. And I have a few points. I'll try to be brief on them because I had to jump out, and I hope I didn't miss anything critical. But I wanted to circle back around to Jamie's point that it's important to think about whether or not you have the opportunity to influence and have a constructive conversation. I think that's very important because the context in which you are presenting your beliefs can really impact whether or not you're going to provide anything constructive. And if you can't, it might not be the best place to have that discussion. I think another concern is that when you are representing another organization that isn't just yourself, you do have an obligation to give that some thought first. I think it gets tricky in upper management because their beliefs really shape the company and you can't separate them as much. I also think that this is something to consider when you are a smaller business because you're really not able to separate your vibe, your brand, your personal interests completely from that company. So I do think they come into play. However, if it isn't something you're highly educated about, it may not be the stand for you to take, because I think that there's some highly sensitive, controversial topics that are going on in our world, and I think it's really good to have the discussions. But if it's not constructive to have completely ignorant debate, where a lot of things are just heated opinions and belligerence. That's not where we learn from each other. So I think it's fine to step back from those types of situations. I think it was Charlie that said that he doesn't argue with strangers about politics on Facebook. Goodness, I don't like to argue about politics on Facebook at all. It's just not place. I'm not going to say on my own page I won't ever maybe state something or provide some information, but quite honestly, I try to provide information than my own opinion most of the time, even on my own personal page. However, I do control what is posted on my page. I don't tolerate somebody putting their own agenda on my personal page because that looks like I'm endorsing it. And so that's just not cool with me. So, yeah. And I know Harry mentioned the Four Agreements, which I highly recommend. It's a short read, great book. And I think those were the points that I wanted to make. With that, I yield the mic back to you, Tom. This has been Tiffany.
Thanks, Tiffany. I appreciate that. And I agree. I think here's one thing I wanted to share, because inevitably, regardless of where you individually, personally fall on the political spectrum, I think it's fair to say that everybody in this room at some point is going to find themselves in a discussion with somebody who they disagree with politically, right? And I found I heard this advice on a podcast, and I've used it to good effect, and I think it's a great way to approach those kinds of conversations, and that is, rather than asking why or trying to counter someone's position or provide a counter opinion to their position, um, instead ask how they came to feel the way that they feel, right? And ask how they formed those opinions and how they developed that perception and those beliefs around the world. And that will actually lead you to a productive place where you can find mutual respect, where you can empathize with them, where it'll provide opportunity for them to describe experiences that they've had in their life that have led them in a particular direction. But it'll actually hopefully open up the opportunity to have a constructive discussion rather than just an adversarial one. So just some knowledge. I by no means am I taking credit for that. It was actually a guy by the name of Jason Kander who I heard say that on his podcast, and it's called Majority 54. If anybody wants to check it out, it's an interesting podcast, and the whole premise of it is figuring out how to have constructive debates across the political spectrum. And across the political divide that we see in the U.S. right now. So it's just I thought it was really good advice and something that I wanted to share and popped into my head because of what Tiffany had to say. So thank you for that, Tiffany. Appreciate it. And Jamie, I saw you flashing. I didn't know if there was something you wanted to add there, or you were just applauding. Let me know.
I was applauding and my finger was sticky.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I appreciate the applause. And Charlie, did you have something you wanted to add, my friend?
Yeah, real quickly, you are right, Tom, with the political. We will cross someone. And I mentioned my Facebook because I'm not political. I'm actually political agnostic. And because I am a strong voice on certain topics, people search my Facebook left and right to try to dig out what political affiliation I have. And it really has gotten bizarre in the last couple of years. And I will not engage anyone because after reading again and clearly, I never really have enough information to formulate an opinion. So whatever your opinion is, it's based on whatever information you have. So I really want to stay neutral in this area. Even in my own household, how's that one for you? In my own household, I stay neutral in this one area. Other than that, if there's a victim, if there's a dog in need, or a human being that needs to be taken out of a car, I'll risk my life in a New York second. That completes me.
Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate that. Tiffany, were you applauding, or did you have something you wanted to add there?
I was trying to applaud, but again, my finger was I had been doing dishes, and so my finger was stuck too.
Gotcha.
But I do want to concur with Charlie, if I can, for a moment. You're right. I mean, in order to get along with certain people in our lives, we simply need to maintain neutrality. I definitely have relatives in my family that I completely disagree with, and there's topics that we don't discuss for that reason, and I think that's okay. We need to get along as human beings. So with that, I yield the mic.
100%. I agree with that. I also have close family members who I have strong disagreements with, and using that sort of that how approach as opposed to the why or a counterpoint approach has definitely helped diffuse some conversations that otherwise could have gotten a little heated. So that's been my personal experience with it. Moving along, Allie West. Allie West, welcome to the room. So the topic we're talking about today is taking a stand for what you believe in, personally and professionally, using your platform to do so. So what are your thoughts on the subject? The floor is yours.
Thank you for welcoming me to the room. I saw Julie in here, and I hadn't been on the platform in a while, and so I saw her and jumped in the room, and the discussion is amazing.
Hi,
So,
Allie.
hi, Julie.
The
So,
Pied
thank you
Piper
all
strikes again. The Pied Piper of Clubhouse strikes again.
for holding this space. So, I think when I've listened to the subject about taking a personal stance, I think that's just been kind of my whole life. uh, is that I've danced to the beat of my own drum, sometimes to my triumph and sometimes to my detriment. Many years ago, I spent many years in nonprofit. And in the nonprofit world, it's about, grants and service and, helping I call it the unhelpful language of nonprofit, helping the underserved and underprivileged. And there were times as being part of administration when we're writing these grants or making these reports, I was asked to report information that wasn't true. And particularly over programs that I managed or oversaw, where I was a part of the day to day and saw it happening. But when the reports came, was asked to, you know, force the numbers or tell, I'm good at storytelling, but I tell true stories and to tell stories that wasn't fact. And there were times where I walked away. I refused to do it. My job was threatened in situations like that. And so I fired myself and gave my own pink slip because for me, it was more about the integrity of the work that we were doing and also my personal integrity. That's been many years, but I still operate in that vein in the personal work that I do. My brand is messologist. I turn messes into masterpieces, starting with me. And that is now moved into a space where my work is to combat divisive behaviors. Anyone can have an opinion about whatever, especially about me. That's not my business. I don't care. But my thing is being authentic and true to who I am, and that is removing the mess out of my life and the life of others that I come into contact with. And mess in this case is just the misaligned energy shadowing success. Sometimes it's so my work now is turning into the healing work, the self-actualization, the evolution, all is one work. And this is very different from where I've come from, but taking that stance, I don't think I was doing it on purpose. I think it was just something I was called to do. And I tried to run from it, but every time I tried to run from it, it would find me. So now I'm in this space of transitioning where that's my purpose. How can we heal? How can we move forward? Our opinions, my personal opinion of a particular person, how can I move that out of the way and move forward for the greater good? So that's where I stand on it. Thank you for having this space and allow me to speak in this platform. And I'm going to relinquish the mic.
Thanks very much, Allie. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it very much, and appreciate the work you're doing. As I love that term, messologist. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Another person who I have to say thank you to Julie for bringing in. So thanks. And next, as we're moving down the list here of the folks on stage, the next person on stage is also, unsurprisingly, somebody that Julie brought in. He just posted that in the chat. So Dan, welcome back to the room. I know we've had you in here before. Let's hear what you have to say. What are your thoughts? Share your thoughts, your tips, your where you fall on the idea of taking a stand on your platform.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Tom, for having me in. Julie, as always, for pinging me in. And of course, Jay. Uh, I've been trying to think of where I could add something different to the conversation as we've gone through, because I think Ali and Jay in particular really talked about less of making a stand as it is just standing by your morality and your ethics. And if that's what people consider taking a stand, then that's their prerogative. But it's something that's very deeply ingrained from the core of who you are, and that's really how I operate. uh, I'm very grateful to have a very, very large platform that I take a large amount of responsibility in making sure I'm curating it the right way, whether I'm talking about the gender and racial wealth gap or mental health awareness or whatever. uh, these aren't things that I'm necessarily actively putting like my boots in the ground and saying it's my way or the highway, but they're things that I truly feel to my soul. Now, if you want to talk about taking a stand, I will give you one fairly funny anecdote from a different perspective that I do consider taking a stand. I grew up in Jersey, and back in the day, my background's in journalism, so I was covering the music scene in Asbury Park. And I don't know how many people here know Asbury Park or know the Stone Pony in particular, but it's where Bruce Springsteen got his start. So I was covering the music scene in college. I went to Monmouth University, and they invited me to the Stone Pony. They were doing this event where they were having a competition to see who could go on the side stages at this event that was being produced in East Rutherford, where the Giants play and where the Devils used to be. So they brought me in. And about the third or fourth time, there was this band of like 13-year-old kids that they had put their shirts off. It was very much like a mini Whitesnake almost. And they came to me and they said, "Hey, we've put a lot of money into these kids to get them through. We'd like to give you $100 to push them through in this round." And I sat there for about 30 seconds, and then I said, and then let it go. But when the time came to vote for them, I didn't vote for them because I didn't think it was right. Anyway, I was removed from the venue, and apparently I became part of a society of people that were booted out of the Stone Pony. And I have a shirt now that says Stone Pony with the band, BANNED. And that was an example of me taking a stand against doing something I didn't think was right, and also, one of those funny stories you get to tell your kids about when you're older. So sorry for taking up much time, but there's two components to it, and hopefully that entertains somebody.
I appreciate that, Dan. I love that story. That's a great story. Yeah, I mean, I think to clarify the way I think of taking a stand as it contextually, as we're talking about it in the space here today, is just what you're talking about, is about standing by your morality and the things you believe in, to be right and just and good. Yeah, so I appreciate you. Like you said, you have a fairly large platform, and I appreciate you, taking the responsibility that goes with that seriously, and working hard to make sure you're curating that platform well and inclusively. So thank you for that. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you being here. Thanks for being here, and thanks to Julie again for pinging you in. Appreciate it. So moving along here, we've got our friend Rebecca Easter. And Rebecca, we're talking about today the idea of taking a stand as a business and standing for what you believe in, aligning with your morals, and sharing those with your audience and with your community. Where do you fall on that idea? What are your thoughts there?
Hi, good morning. This is Rebecca, the Easter Gardener. I honestly don't have a good answer. I was just more listening and seeing what other people's opinions were. Again, it just goes back to what you believe in, and kind of it's hard. It's a hard one.
It is
So
hard. It's 100%
just
hard.
totally. And I'm still learning. So can I just listen to my...
Absolutely. If
I don't
there's
have a
anything,
good...
if and the other side too, and I said this at the beginning, if you have a question, if you're here to share a tip, or want to share on something else, by all means, the floor is yours. Don't feel like if this is not a topic that you feel you want to speak to, don't feel obligated to. This is an open forum that we create here every week. So if there's something else you want to speak to, feel free.
Well, my podcast is regarding I get other gardeners' stories and backgrounds and their perspective on things. So with that platform, I get to share their stories as well. So that's really meaningful to me. But I appreciate you letting me speak, and I close the mic. You guys have a good day. Thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And thanks for your honesty. It's one of those things. I think some people would have felt obligated to try to speak to something that they didn't feel moved to speak to. And I appreciate you being honest and just saying that you were here to listen. We appreciate that, and thank you for being here. So next up, Professor T. I know another friend of Julie's and Jay's, and somebody who's in the room pretty regularly here with us. So, Professor T, welcome to the stage. The floor is yours. Let us know what you think.
Hey, good morning. This is Teresa Augustinelli, otherwise known as Prof T from Philly. And I just love the topic. I would have to say that this is where I live, because when I first started out in my journey as someone who was a widow, I had no job. I was a single mother, had few skills, little resources. And back in the day, we're talking about the 90s. We're not talking about the 1930s, the 90s. I was considered a displaced housewife simply because they didn't have a term for us. And so I decided to go back to school, get my degree. And my first shot at my degree was interning, and I began to be really called to social services, social work. So I learned early on how to advocate for people because I had to advocate for myself. Um, because where I was mentally, emotionally, relationally, financially, I had to learn. I grew up with a lot of trauma and drama, so I was very used to chaos. I was very used to trauma and drama, and I had to advocate for myself. So, with that said, yes, I believe absolutely in integrity. I'm not one of the people that have these large, grandiose rooms and millions of followers and making millions of dollars on ClickFunnels and join this and sign up for that. I don't do that, but I help people in what we call obscurity. Thousands and thousands of people over 20 years advocating for their mental health, advocating for their children, advocating for them in their job, in their career, in their relationships. And I'm very proud of myself for doing that because I've helped so many people change their lives. And so with that said, I believe in integrity first. Yeah. Do we sign on for everybody for what they're saying? No, we don't. I know that for me, there's certain things that are they're not on the table. If it's something that I think is going to be detrimental to a child, or to a woman, or to someone's company, that is not a discussion that I will put on the table. So there's lots of things I think we all stand for. I love, Jay, what you said. If you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for everything. And I'm going to close with this. About 20 years ago, I read a little line in the Bible, little tiny line, and it said, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. And it is not easy. It's not easy to advocate. It's not easy to walk in integrity every single day. It's not easy to stand in your truth, walk in your truth. And that's what I have done for 20 years. So, with that said, I actually wrote a book about it because it's mindset and it's never giving up no matter what. Keep going, stay strong. Thank you so much. Love this room, love the topic. Don't want to hog your mic. Love Julie, love Jay, love Dan, love Charlie. Thank you. This is Prof T from Philly. I yield my mic.
Thanks for being here, Prof T, and thanks for sharing some of your experience again that has led you to kind of hold the beliefs that you hold today. I appreciate that. I think it's important again to understand and to do that, to be able to find common ground, you know, between each other, between one another. So thank you for sharing that, Prof T. Always a pleasure to have you here in the room. Really appreciate it. Next, we got somebody who is new to the space, new to both Clubhouse and to the room here. Zap exclusive. Zap, the floor is yours. Share your thoughts on the topic at hand, or share a tip, ask a question. Let us know what's going on in your world.
Hey, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm Zap exclusive. I'm brand new to Clubhouse. I think yesterday was the day that I created it. But I'm the founder. My name is Jersey. I'm a choreographer and creative director first, but um, transitioning into doing news and media. So hence why the brand new Zap exclusive. Been working on it for maybe like about 6 months. But I guess I had to make the step to actually solidify it and not use my personal Instagram or, social media handles anymore, and actually just making that step to solidify a proper business. I saw the room was podcasting, Clubhouse, publishing, and social media. And I thought this would be perfect for, I guess my first room on Clubhouse. So I was just listening to everyone's stories and taking it all in, and very excited to connect with you guys and move the culture forward. But I have a question for you guys. In terms of podcasting, how are you guys able to monetize through Clubhouse if you guys aren't?
I'm gonna kick that one to our friend producer Jemmy, if she has some thoughts on the subject about how to try to monetize a podcast through Clubhouse. Producer Jemmy, what do you think?
Hey, so there are a couple different ways that you can attack that, and I think the question back to you is: Are you, in order to best answer it, is are you intending to record? And you're new, but are you intending to record on Clubhouse and use that content as the podcast, or are you podcasting in the traditional sense and then want to see about adding Clubhouse into the mix and trying to monetize that way?
So the shows are done. The way that I do the podcast is done via Instagram Live, and then we just rip the audio and then we upload it. But I was trying to figure out if there's a new way to be able to, stream or host a podcast via Clubhouse and then be able to create some monetary income off of that, or if it's just simply not able to be done.
Okay, so I think Clubhouse in and of itself is a platform. I mean, they tried monetizing the platform in a direct sense a long time ago, and so I think you can still set yourself up. I think probably if you tap on my profile, there's a give money button. I think that's still a thing. But no one really uses it. I'll be honest with you. That didn't really take off past the first couple of weeks. I think anything that you plan on doing is still going to be indirect, but using Clubhouse as just a new platform to do that. And I apologize that my answer is going to have to be a little bit brief because I do have a room to open here in a minute, ironically enough. Um, so what I would do if I were you is using Clubhouse to gain your audience, to grow your audience, to find people to interact with, to have them either provide feedback of a past episode or gear them up and excited for a future episode. Maybe as a deeper dive to having them, like if you have guests on your show, for example, you can open a Clubhouse room, then have that guest on in the Clubhouse room for Q&A. So, and then anything else that you're doing, monetizing your show can be elevated by efforts that you do in Clubhouse. So I don't think it's anything direct. And I'll just use myself as an example. I monetize my show in a variety of ways. There's sponsorships. It also does help me bring in clients. So it's indirectly sponsored in that way, or monetized in that way. Um, so when I hold rooms here on Clubhouse, it's really, honest to God, it's just me giving back. It's this industry has given me so much, so I like to give back. But also as a great bonus and side effect is exposure for my show, exposure for my profession, my podcasting services, and that all in in and of itself lends itself to monetizing, like elevates all of those other efforts. So I don't think Clubhouse directly is something that really people have made a monetization play that I've seen that's been successful. I mean, you can certainly hold a room and do something like mentioning your, put a link up. You can pin links to the top to like your buy me a coffee or your Patreon and those kinds of things, and drive traffic to other things that you've already set up. But that's really what it is. It's using Clubhouse to drive traffic to things you've already set up for monetization. I hope that helps. And I apologize that I have to be a little bit brief, but I got to run. Let me say, Tom, this has been a fantastic room. I'm going to give Dominick a great report for you.
Thanks. Were you here to make sure that I didn't mess it up too bad?
That's exactly what he said. He sent me in. I'm just kidding. No, it was a wonderful space, and for what you were willing to talk about, you managed to have a very safe and productive conversation, and I just wanted to give you your flowers and applaud you for that. So good job today.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you here. I appreciate it. Zap, I hope that helped answer your question as to ways to approach using Clubhouse to help grow your audience, grow your community around your podcast, and then using that as a secondary way to monetize. Did that help you?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jamie. That was really, really good. So Clubhouse is pretty much like the funnel to get people to where you want them to really go. And I absolutely understood that analogy. So thank you guys.
Bye,
Awesome.
guys.
Thanks. Bye, Jemmy. Bye, Jemmy. Always good to see you. Thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate it. And thanks for appreciate Zap for asking that question. Thank you for that. I'm going to jump back up real quick. I just realized that I don't know if you had dropped off of my screen here for a second, James, or something, but I completely jumped over you. If you had dropped off, I'm not sure what happened there, but I apologize. Nonetheless, always glad to have you here in the space and in the room. You're somebody who has a platform. You're, podcasting regularly and talking about sports and sharing opinions and thoughts on sports. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the subject we're talking about today and taking a stand for what you believe is right on your platform. So the floor is yours, my friend. Thank you.
Hey, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Fortunately, in the UK, I'm kind of working and ducking and diving and all that kind of thing all at the same time. This subject, this subject is is a fun one for me. Obviously, in sports, you do have to kind of stick up for and kind of make a stand for a lot of things. And a lot of the time, like there's always the MJ versus LeBron, who is the GOAT argument, and so on. Clearly, there is no argument; it is MJ. But sometimes as well, what I've seen recently in recent years is you see players of sports teams. We've seen them take stands. Here in the UK, there was a young, and he is young. I think he's about 21 years old. He plays for Manchester United, and during the pandemic, kids whose parents didn't have a lot of money, and their main source of nutrition through a day was when they were at school and they got a school lunch. Now, during the pandemic, the schools were closed, so this footballer went to the government and made it very public that the government were doing these kids a disservice by not providing them a school lunch during the pandemic. Um, he basically embarrassed Boris Johnson, which, let's be honest, isn't that difficult to do. And yeah, next thing, kids in England were getting free school lunches. The Scottish government were already doing it, so we were fine. But in terms of England and just kind of bringing that to the forefront of people's minds, and that was something that was really strong. In America, we've seen it as well. However, it's been a lot more difficult topics. I remember when I first started my podcast about a year and a half ago, it was about 3 weeks. I was 3 episodes in, and there had been a shooting in Milwaukee. The Milwaukee Bucks and the Milwaukee Brewers, both baseball and basketball teams, had their players basically refused to play. They were done. Basically, a man being, whatever had happened, had been shot in the back 7 times by a police officer. And, those players thought like enough was enough. And when I did my little bit on the podcast, and this was when I was very young in podcasting, 3 episodes in, and I kind of found myself kind of going off on a rant because, like, how do you justify shooting somebody 7 times in the back? So I think from my perspective, do I take a stand? Probably not on my podcast. I don't take a stand. But what I will do is highlight the stand that others have taken. Right now in Russia, there's a WNBA player who is being incarcerated in Russia. And, the US are trying to get her back out of Russia and all this kind of thing. And obviously, this starts to involve Ukraine and everything else. But one thing that I do notice is that stands seem to revolve around politics like a lot. And I heard earlier on people falling out with family members and like all this kind of thing. And that's kind of sad. I've got family in America as well as here in the UK. And they live in Utah, which is a very Republican state. And, I sometimes, now it's my sense of humor, sometimes maybe doesn't come across quite as well with Americans. And even with my uncles, my uncle he sent me like this kind of mock video that had obviously been edited to show something that was bad. But it was totally being cut up and edited and stuff, so it wasn't real. And he's trying to bandwagon me with this. Oh, this person's really bad, blah 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 blah. And when I kind of forced it back to him that this is totally made up and fabricated, this video, it's been cut from different clips and all this kind of stuff. He fell out with me and he kind of banned me. He blocked me on Facebook and kind of all this kind of stuff. And sometimes I think it is one thing to take a stand and have your beliefs, and that's good. So that's not a bad thing. However, it's another to ram it down other people's throats, and that's one thing I kind of won't stand for. And people are entitled to their own opinion, and I think actually it's a positive for the world that we all hold different opinions and we all hold like different thoughts, because if we didn't, then the world would be a pretty boring place, let's be honest. So I actually think it's good, and I think debate is, and I mean constructive debate, not just shouting matches, but debate is such a positive thing. And believe it or not, like on our sports shows, we debate all the time. The hosts of our different 8 shows debate all the time because they're debating, was that a good play? Was that a bad play? And they probably don't even realize they're doing it. And they're having these little, not arguments, but they're having these little kind of disagreements, probably without realizing it, and kind of taking a stand pretty much in every segment, unless they actually agree. But yeah, so I think taking a stand is one thing. But I think we have to remember that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and to fall out with people over it is, and it can be quite a serious topic, but to fall out over it and all that kind of stuff, I think those are the kind of people that, they lost the argument, and it's almost as if they've kind of feel like they've lost face or something. But you should never feel that way at all on that kind of side of it as well. So, I mean, coming from Scotland, I maybe do look at it a bit differently, especially when it comes to American politics. But yeah, it is what it is. But I think for my realm in sports, I am definitely not a shut up and dribble person. I would rather that these athletes use their platforms for good, and for bringing light to subjects that maybe don't get looked at so often.
Awesome. Thanks, James. I appreciate that. And I for one agree with you. I think, look, if you've got a platform, I think you should use it to do good, right? If you're using your platform to do good in the world, I I find it hard to take seriously any criticism of that, right? So if you're doing it, if you're using your platform to draw attention to kids needing to get school lunches, or social injustice, or human rights violations, or any of those things, if you're using your platform to draw attention to those things and to right wrongs, and improve bad situations for other people, then I mean, throw all the criticism you want at it, tell them to shut up and dribble, but they're doing more than you are. So I wonder where some of those criticisms come from, right? So thanks for sharing that, James. I appreciate that. And again, apologize for skipping over you earlier. I'm not as adept at this as Dom is. So thanks for being here again, and thanks for juggling things from across the pond to be part of this space. Appreciate you. Girish, my friend and yours, Girish is here. Hosts a daily podcast, and is kind enough to give us a few minutes of his time in between producing an episode every day. So Girish, what are your thoughts on taking a stand? You ever take a stand on your platform or encourage your guests to do so?
Yeah, thank you again, Tom, for bringing me up, and thank you everyone for listening. Um, you know, there was a title of an episode that I did today on Clubhouse called "The Lone Wolf or the Wolf Pack." Now, I see myself as a lone wolf and fighting every day to share knowledge as much as I know from my guest. Um, I never. Sometimes I feel that lonely wolf is really lonely, but honestly speaking, uh, what really encourages me is to record every day, learning from other guests on my show. It makes me stronger day by day, and it's kind of crazy, right? Because what I do on my show is to give, and share, and that's what I do. Uh, if I'm gonna walk alone, let's say for example on Podfest, I'll walk alone. I'll fight and I'll get somewhere on my own. And I think I'm doing on my own. So whoever's listening now, if you feel lonely on this whole podcast world or entrepreneurial world or whatever it is, um, just follow your passion. And I'm following mine. It might take a long time, but it's going to be there. And if you can smell the money or you can smell the success, I think go for it. I mean, that's all I got to say on that part, Tom.
Awesome. Thanks, Girish. I appreciate that. Yeah, 100%. I heard somebody recently say that, enthusiasm always wins, right? And I think in a lot of cases, enthusiasm for a subject, or passion about a subject, or about a topic, or about a project, or something you do, is the most powerful thing in the world, right? And interchangeable with that idea of enthusiasm. So 100%, if you're pursuing your passion, if you're passionate about the work that you do, if you're passionate about the job that you do every day, about showing up for your community in the way that you do, Girish, then you're always going to find success through following that passion. So it can be scary and can be difficult to do, but I would encourage everybody to pursue passion whenever possible. And I apologize for the extreme alliteration. There were way too many P's in that sentence, but yeah, pursue passion whenever possible. We'll move on from there. Dr. Tachi, welcome to the stage. Always good to have you here. And I'm super curious, as another media professional, I'm super curious to hear your opinion on this subject and your thoughts on using your platform to take a stand on your moral or ethical beliefs. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Good morning, Tom, and everyone. And before I start, Tom, I just have to say, I think that you were classmates with Harry Potter, because I don't know what type of sorcery you're using to look. You look fantastic, like nothing ever happened. So you just erased that whole thing. So you look fantastic. I just had to say that.
I no sorcery, exercise, and not even slightly clean living, something like that. I take a multivitamin, stuff like that. But I appreciate that. Thank you for saying so.
Okay, clean living, exercise, sorcery, yes. Anyway, I'm kidding. So I think definitely, let me speak for me. It's really difficult, being a media person, but also being a journalist. Where you're really not supposed to infuse opinion when you're reporting news, for example. But it's difficult because you're a human. You're human, so you think, you feel, you have values, and often those are transmitted through your media products, through your content, and it's okay. But like you said, as long as you're using your platform, and you should use your platform to do good in the world. I think it was Paulo Freire who said that art is not art for art's sake, that it should be used for upliftment and to do good. So I 100% agree with that. In terms of me, because I know that I have so many different types of people who watch and who listen, and because I've seen some of the things that they post, it doesn't mean that they are not great people. And as such, I try to stay away from things on my platform like extreme views on religion, extreme views on politics. In fact, I don't do, as I call it, politricks at all. One of the platforms I'm on is like, okay, yeah, we take any type of show except, no profanity, no politics. I'm like, no problem. That's me all day. So it's okay. And I also know how I can be. So it's best for me to stay away from certain things, but so as not to alienate, for me, audiences, so that they can see the great things about media tech and pop culture that we talk about and have fun. Um, Infusing things like politics uh, doesn't work for me. So we just stay away from it altogether. However, if there's something that I really need to stand for and believe in, for damn sure, I put it on my platform. Definitely. I have opinions about certain things. So that's why I'm not hard news per se, because I do have opinions about certain things. I think it's okay to have informed opinion, meaning I've done the research. And so I'm forming opinions based not just off of what I think, but also documented research that's off that is all out there in the world. So, long answer short, I believe in using your platform for good, to communicate what it is your values and belief systems are. But for me, if it's going to alienate people that would enjoy the content otherwise, I try to stay away from certain topics, if that makes sense. I release the mic.
100%. And I agree. I mean, I think, there's a line to be drawn there between sharing your beliefs, right, and sharing your ethics, and ethical frameworks that you use to navigate the world, and trying to enforce those on others, right, and trying to impose those on others. And I think that's an important place to draw a line, and something I literally did myself early on in this room. My friend Brian, who's no longer in here, offered a differing opinion to something I had said, and my initial thought in my head, I'm going to be 100% transparent with you guys. The initial thought in my head was to offer a counterpoint, and I pulled myself back and I said, nope, this is not the space. That's not what we're here to do today. What we're here to do is to create an open space where people can feel comfortable sharing differing opinions and have a constructive conversation about the subject that I opened up with. And so I pulled back, and I did not hit him with I did not offer a counterpoint to his position, because we weren't here to debate personal positions. We were here to talk about the overall subject that I brought into the room today. So I agree. I think it's a line to walk, and something to be mindful of, right? Is that while it's good, I think it's good to share, use your platform to do good, and I believe it's good to share your ethics and your morality, and the frameworks that you use to navigate the world. I think it's also important to make sure that you do it in a way that does not impose your beliefs or your ethics or your morals on other people. I think that's an important line to bear in mind and something to think about going forward. So thanks for that, Dr. Tachi. Appreciate you being here as always, and thanks for sharing. And last person up on stage here is Stephen. So Stephen, the floor is yours. You know the topic, so let us hear your thoughts. Pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the space.
Yeah, so as I've been listening to people and they're talking about, like the last person just spoke, Doctor, was when I was listening, I was thinking, oh, wow, amazing how topics can be interjected and brought in. And I've thought about this probably too much. So I've thought it through from a number of different directions. And hopefully this saves somebody some brain space, because I came to this conclusion on topics like these are the topics: faith topics, political topics. I'm going through topics, like I'm going through XYZ topics. This is my quote: they're not wrong conversations, they're just long conversations, very, very long. And it's even, here's a fourth one that's very, very difficult. We've done 300 days of leadership, and I've come to this conclusion that outspoken leaders in today's society are going to get mischaracterized. So there's a mischaracterization of leaders today. And please tell me I'm wrong, and go look on Twitter and see for yourself, because that's where you get to see probably the most outspoken ones. And show me the ones that don't ever get mischaracterized, that post consistently, that they all do. To the point of, Dalai Lama probably has been told on social media, don't follow anybody, nobody. So if you look at Dalai Lama's Twitter account, he follows literally nobody. But then there becomes situations where it kind of gets embedded in, like somebody that, like say Steve Jobs, he's mentioned as a leader over and over and over again. And often to the point of, I say, who are the greatest living leaders? And people will still mention Steve Jobs, be like, okay, he's passed away now. He's no longer living. And he interjected it this way. He gave out a book that's called Autobiography of a Yogi. And what's interesting is that some people have claimed to read it. And then I ask him just a simple question, because there's a phrase in there. Here's what a long conversation looks like. If I said right now on the stage, try to think how we could come to a consensus on what this phrase would mean. I had an encounter with gnomes, fairies, and mermaids. Do you think you could come to a consensus on that? Probably not. Some people are like, okay, what TV show were you watching? What movie were you watching? Or some people could think, oh, that's some spiritual thing. But in that book, it mentions it and then just kind of like goes on, like everybody's going to understand what you mean when you've had an encounter with a gnome, fairy, and a mermaid. And I pointed out to people in the book, and they're like, "Oh, I overlooked that." Well, I know, but if you said, "Hey," if I said to you, "Hey, look, I had an encounter with a gnome and some gnomes, fairies, and mermaids," can you just take that on face value and let's just move on? Probably not. You'd be like, "Okay, what movie were you watching? What drug were you on? How much pizza did you have before your dream?" I probably would ask questions like that. And I think that so I think the best thing that I've learned in the community that I lead is this: the best way is what I call conflict resolution. And for conflict resolution, you start deep and then go up. Deep and go up is get to know the people that are around the people. Get to know the people that are around the people. Like, for example, I came in because of Prof T, and we know people that are around each other. Like, I know Prof T because of the people that she associates with. She knows me because of the people I associate with in the community. Because in any conflict resolution, they say, because one-to-one, I can have a conversation with anybody here one-to-one, but I'm going to get to know you far, 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 far better when I get to know the 3 or 4 people that you spend the most time with in, rather than directly to you than out. Because I think that's what Clubhouse allows you to do. You see who hangs out with who, and you get to know who's around them, and then you can avoid so many difficult conversations. And then those long conversations, the fun ones like faith, politics, I'm going through this problem, or those things become super fun when you have great context built. How does this person think? Who do they hang around with? And then you go into those conversations, they're a blast. But with that, I'm done speaking.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate that. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts with the space. Yeah, I mean, it's it's a very challenging, multifaceted issue that people have to deal with and have to navigate. And it's a challenge, and I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk about it today, because I think it's a challenge, and it's something that there's I think for a lot of folks, there's a lot of anxiety around and a lot of concern around. And so I wanted to create a space today to talk about that with people. So I appreciate you sharing your thoughts and being part of the room today. And thanks for coming in. Thanks to I'm glad that you spotted Prof T and came into the room. Appreciate you being here. So we're coming to a close here. We've heard from everybody here up on stage. If anybody has any last thoughts that they want to share before we close out today, please go ahead and flash your mics. And otherwise, we will go ahead and close out the room. We've been here for almost 2 hours. Been going for about an hour and 55 minutes here, and really appreciate your thoughts. I know it was a little bit of a more serious tone today in the room, and I appreciate everyone being here for it and sharing and participating and being a part of this space. It really means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to Dominick. We appreciate all of you coming here every week and being a part of this room, and allowing us to host you and to create a space where we can help each other and we can further topics along and have productive, meaningful discussions. So really appreciate everybody for being here today. And I just want to leave you with this. Just remember, if you're concerned about how other people will react to something you feel moved to or compelled to share on your platform, just remember that you can never control how other people react, what other people do. You can only control your own actions. So if you feel moved to share, if you feel compelled to take a stand on your ethics or your morals, then remember that you can only control what you do. You can never control how other people respond to it. So that's the best advice I can give. Again, it's a personal decision for everyone. Like I said at the very beginning of this Clubhouse room, I personally think it's okay and can often be a good thing to take a stand on your platform and to tie your morals and your ethics to your business as an entrepreneur. So I'll leave everybody with that. Thanks again, everyone, for being here today. For everybody that watched on the live stream, much appreciated as always. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time now. It's that time of year. So we'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks, everybody. Much appreciated. And goodbye to the live stream.